From Chicago's CAN TV, this is Chicago Newsroom.
Well, hi there and welcome to Chicago Newsroom here on CAN TV. I'm Ken Davis. On today's show, our mayor, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, that mayor, is running for re-election. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he is. What does it mean that 9 Chicagoans have lined up to challenge him? Does that indicate our dissatisfaction with him? Does it demonstrate his political weakness? Will we decide to trade him in for a guy who ran the police department during his first term? Or maybe a former budget director and school superintendent with decades of experience in municipal finance, or perhaps that former chair of the police board, or someone who's been the clerk of the circuit courts for almost a generation? An accomplished former principal, education policy expert, or a businessman who's a self-made millionaire with no government experience? Or perhaps our guest today. He's someone with very little of that extensive life experience, but that's only because his life hasn't been that long. At 22 years old, he's the youngest candidate in the field, and he says it's time for the millennial gang to step up and do their job. Jamal Green, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me,
And
Ken.
Apologies for starting off by butchering your name.
No
Jamal,
problem.
we're going to have to get
Yes.
that right. Mayor Jamal Green.
Yes, and I'm 23 now.
23 now.
Last week I had a birthday.
I tried to this morning. I tried to Google your birthday because I could see you were reported both ways. So
Right.
I gave you the benefit of the doubt there. 23 years old. When is
Yes.
your birthday?
August 9th.
Oh, so just
It was
happened.
last week. We had a big
Congratulations.
fundraiser for it.
Oh,
Thank you.
well,
Thank you.
congratulations to
I
you.
appreciate it.
You know, we usually dive right into the issues and everything, but with you, I really want to know more about you. I think we all want to know more about you. Are you a Chicago kid?
From Chicago, born and raised in Inglewood as well as in Gresham. Saw a lot of things in front of me from people being shot, being scared, was hiding behind bushes, being scared that the gunman was going to shoot me.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of this. You have actually witnessed people being shot.
Definitely.
With your own eyes. You've
With my
seen it
own
happen.
eyes. You know, even times, at my house in Inglewood and looking outside my window because I hear gunshots and a guy right in front of my house just shooting at a car. You know, these are things I saw growing up. In school, I was a troublemaker. I was the class clown. I always wanted to lead the classroom. So I was put out of 9 schools. I went to 12 in my school life, right? So I have a lot of experience
CPS
in
or
public schools. Yes.
All proud CPS grad.
90% CPS, a couple Catholic schools. But so yeah, I got a lot of experience in how bad our school system is and how we would choose to just put out a kid and not actually figure out the problem or invest any time into that kid. And I could have went on a different path, you know, but instead my mom put me around different mentors who she thought were great for me to be around. And, you know, they started putting me in different program and they started meeting with me every week and just trying to put my life on the right path. At 15 years old, I had another mentor who was my history teacher. A Greek white man, you would never believe. We became the best of friends. And we started a company together at Wendell Phillips High School. And we were in control of all of the youth programming, from anti-bullying, anti-violence. We did Def Jam shows. We led youth peace marches down King Drive that was several miles long and gave all the students who came service learning hours. And I expanded that company to 15 states when I was 16 years old.
Did you graduate from Phillips?
So I didn't graduate from Phillips. Okay. I homeschooled out my last year because I was traveling too much. So at 16 years old, I told my mom, I'm like, well, I had some different partners in other states. We're booking too many schools at one time. It was this one tour where we booked 30 schools in Atlanta. And I had to be in Atlanta for 2 months. I said, okay, I cannot do this. It's impossible for me to be touring and then come back to Wendell Phillips High School and still be caught up. So Mom, I need to come out of school. They said, my mom and dad said, no, you need to finish school the traditional way. My grandma said, well, I'll take care of you, come move in with me and you can go and live your dreams. And so that's how I end up keep on going. And then at 18 years old, I was the Put the Guns Down ambassador for the city. So I was partnering with the city to do some of the same things I was doing
through the police
around the
department.
Country. No, through the city of Chicago, through the mayor's office.
Office.
Not really in conjunction with the mayor because he didn't do anything.
So 18, this would have been Mayor Emanuel.
It was Mayor Emanuel, but it was his deputy mayor, who was Kim Bennett at the time. He partnered my company with the city, and it was really through him and through his department in the mayor's office. I had no contact with the mayor, and I've never received $1 from the city of Chicago.
When did you get your first McDonald's franchise?
Never got a McDonald's franchise. And, you know, I got some churches coming up soon. I don't plan to give out any money.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I want to see if I can be there when you're handing out the cash.
But, you know, I have done my share of giving back over the years. You know, I partnered with Home with Chevy. This past Christmas, we gave away a car. And for Christmas, I also went around the streets of Chicago giving out, we had a challenge that is called the Man in the Mirror Challenge, where we gave out $100 bills to residents who would commit to doing something for someone else. So we gave them a card, and they would open it up and be like, whoa, now you got to go bless someone else. So I've done my share of giving back and mentoring as well under my mentoring organization with young people.
So what former politician are you are you a reincarnate of? That's what I want to know.
You know, I don't think I'm a reincarnation of anyone. And I've had some political mentors.
You must have, yes.
Over the years that have, and Kim Bennett being one of them. But you know, from there, I was a surrogate for Bernie Sanders too.
Yeah,
so,
I know that.
I traveled around the country with him and being close with him and his wife, and you know, real close. Like I spoke and introduced him at a lot of the rallies around the country. So. Just seeing that firsthand and seeing how they moved and how genuine they were, I said, wow, maybe I could get into politics, because I've always hated politics, always. I said, no, I'm gonna be on the outside, hold politicians accountable, go to Rahm's house a few times a year and demand that we have different policies, which we got tasers and body cameras from doing that last year. But I said, we need people that understand these issues in these seats. You know, that's the only way.
I'm not quite buying this, because there's just no way you just spring fully formed into this when you're 16, 17 years old. You knew when you were a kid, you must have known. We actually have something in common, because I was kind of one of those kids who sat in the back of the room and tried to compete with the teacher and had my own clique in the back of the room.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
And you knew as a very young kid that you had some quality that people would listen to you or take your opinion to mean something, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, in school, so that was a lot of reason why schools put me out, is because they felt that I had too much power. So I was able to lead class with the whole school, you know, and kids would do things for me, you know, at their own risk, you know, just because, you know, they looked up to me. And even teachers, you know, I was able to lead teachers at certain points too. So I definitely saw that I had different qualities that could be intimidating, but qualities that I could use for good, which I started using them for good when I got to high school.
So somehow or other, you decided that it's time already for you to run for mayor.
Yeah, I mean...
And so, I mean, the obvious question that people must ask you all the time is, why not, you know, just start out small like alderman or something and you know, hold off till you're 30 before you become the mayor? What is the, what does Obama say, the urgency of now? I forget the exact phrase, but what is that urgency of now?
Because it's time. I mean, you know, looking at this city, I am heartbroken, disheartened of this, how this administration has been over the last 2 terms, and the lack of investment around, you know, all Chicago communities. It's time for someone who cares about these issues, who've been fighting for them firsthand, to be in these positions. So I shot for mayor because I knew I was going to inspire a lot of different young people to take those smaller positions. I'm also a businessman, and I also have my own company where I market and consult and help run large companies around the country. And my whole thing was I wanted to shoot for big, just because I know that the timing is right, the political environment is right, where young people are paying attention, where people want something new, something refreshing. And I don't think we're gonna get a new slate, a new style of politics with someone who's been a part of the establishment, someone who has ties to corrupt corporations, people, etc. We need somebody without baggage, that's not tainted, to give us a new slate in Chicago. That's why I'm running.
So you mean like former police superintendents and former budget directors and folks like that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe we need another career politician or someone who's been a part of the establishment. We need something new, something refreshing, someone who thinks different, someone who is a decision maker. I've always prided myself on being great at making decisions, even when it was in protest and it was the heat of the moment, and I had thousands of people following me. I had to make the right decisions to make sure that everyone stayed safe. And
it got you in trouble in 2016, right? At the Taste of Chicago.
I didn't get in trouble. It was all false. But that comes with the territory. I wear that arrest as a badge of honor. I was arrested from leading protests for thousands and thousands of people over the years. This was Taste Chicago, and I drew almost 4,000 or 5,000 people to that protest. From doing that, I wear that as a badge of honor. That was only one time I've been arrested from leading protests.
That's your whole rap sheet?
That's my whole rap sheet of leading protests. And we got John Lewis and Martin Luther King and so many other people who got arrested dozens and dozens of times. I don't think that my one arrest, was anything. But it was the state's attorney, and I'm gonna make that clear, who hated me because we rallied against her and unseated her with Kim Foxx, who threw all of those bogus felony charges on me. Her name is Anita Alvarez.
But Anita Alvarez wasn't in office.
She was.
In 2016?
Yes, she was. So
I didn't realize. Well,
when we unseated her in the primaries, it was still the general.
But the general
in
hadn't
November.
happened.
The general hasn't happened.
All right.
And I got arrested in July.
Taste of Chicago happens in July.
So she was still the presiding state's attorney. I wasn't thinking that way. I was thinking, y'all don't have nothing on me. Y'all finna just take me to the station. I'm getting out anyway. But she had state's attorneys working overtime all weekend and made up a lot of bogus felonies that were dropped.
The things that I want to talk to you about today are all these just huge, sort of bone-crushing issues that Chicago faces that a lot of pretty smart people have not been able to solve over the years.
Yeah.
And so yes, I kind of agree that it's time for like completely new thinking, completely new blood. I think that's an important position to take. But the problems don't change. They're still there.
Still there.
So let's talk about some of them.
Let's do it.
We can start with yesterday. As we record this show on Thursday, yesterday the ACLU and Black Lives Matters and some other organizations released their official response to the consent decree proposal, which I think we all know. We've been covering that came from the Attorney General and the Mayor and so forth. And they talked about a bunch of new things that they want added to it, including unholstering weapons only when lethal force is needed, which is different from reporting when you point a gun at someone. It takes it a step or two further. The whole thing about reporting when you point a gun or when you observe a colleague doing it, that's new. Mandating annual psychiatric evaluations for police officers. Supervisory authority before minor arrests, and no taunting, humiliating, threatening, or use of racial or gender slurs. I can only imagine the hair burned off of the top of the head of the FOP and all of those folks over there. Saying, well, basically what you're saying is then we just don't even need police officers. You must be one of these disband the police officer crowd.
No, I agree with a lot of those different policies that they want added to the consent decree. And let me just make this clear. I work with the Attorney General on putting together this consent decree, and I want to commend her for doing this and making sure that a judge was put on to monitor this before she transitioned out of office. And that's what she made clear to me, is we're gonna do as much work as we can and get this in front of a judge before I leave.
And we should point out, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we should point out that there are specific dates on this. I mean, the September, I forgot the date, but
there are specific dates.
Early September. It has to be before the judge and the process starts to roll. If you're watching this today, it's probably too late to comment, but the comment period ends on Friday. So if you're watching this on Friday, get down there and make your comment.
So I do commend her on that, because that was a great gesture and a great move, and I had a great time working with her and her staff. They're great. So some of those policies are common sense. That's not saying that, the FOP, like you said, is going to come out and say, well, you just don't want police officers.
You just don't want police officers.
No, we want a police department that serves the people, not an oppressive force on communities. So yes, I fully agreed and pushed for the policy that says that police officers have to document every time they draw their weapon. I'm fully for that. But that takes it, the new policy that was presented by ACLU and Black Lives Matter of every time they unholster a weapon, I would be in favor of moving that a step forward. Okay, just because we need to know how trigger happy our cops are. Right. We need to know how if the training, if there is some gap in training, and we have to train officers better. All these different policies would teach us that, okay? Because if we find out that we got 1,000 officers on the street a day who unholster their weapon, we need to figure out what made you feel like that situation needed to escalate so quickly.
We talk about retraining. And that's a pivot point for deciding how that retraining happens.
Exactly.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but Invisible Institute, I just was made aware of this on the way to the studio here this morning. Invisible Institute is out with a study that shows, and I'm probably grossly misquoting it, but officers who receive 10 or more complaints from the public are responsible for, please don't hold me to these numbers, but it's a huge number. It's something like 60% of all of the charges that come to the police. So what you're seeing is a kind of a numeric verification of this notion we've always said, that most police officers don't do these things, don't get themselves in trouble. But this number of police officers who do, which is probably a significant number, but it's still a small number, they're causing so much of the problem. And yet we don't, go ahead, stop.
No,
stop, Ken.
What I want to say, Ken, is I want to pivot now to an idea that we presented in this campaign, okay? Which has been widely reported around the country now, that officers should carry insurance policies, okay? We're the first campaign to present it. And basically, the insurance premiums will be based on their records. If we have a lot of officers that have been on the force that don't have any complaints at all, those premiums will be low. But those who have lots of complaints that have been investigated and they've been disciplined for them, or lots of lawsuits, they will have higher premiums and be at risk for being uninsurable. And once you're uninsurable and you drop from your policy, you're automatically reassigned to desk duties. That would save us billions of dollars in police misconduct settlements, as well as the interest that we're paying on the bonds to take out to pay for these settlements. So we need a form of accountability that way. That way we can get rid of those, like you just said. It's not that many officers that are doing wrong in the city of Chicago. It's just that a lot of their complaints are going uninvestigated. We got 96% of the, over 60-something thousand complaints over the last 5-6 years. They don't even investigate these complaints. And then once an officer does something, it's, oh, well, they did have 20 complaints of excessive force, of racism, of these. Why aren't they going, why are we not investigating those claims and allowing that police officer to get to that point where they get into a situation that they escalate because of those claims? So we need insurance policies on police officers in the city of Chicago, and that's something that I'll be pushing for in office.
So we obviously know and lament what happened, when we're taping this show last weekend, or the weekend before, that horrible weekend with, the numbers just are remarkable, just dozens of people shot and I think 13 dead, if I'm not mistaken. The response of the city was to put more police on duty in those hotspot communities. And they claimed that there was a 50% or so reduction in shootings, and there may have been no actual deaths last weekend. I think the numbers are fluid and they're almost irrelevant. But the question that remains is this one that we've never been able to resolve. Do you solve this problem by throwing more police at it?
No.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. There is not one report in history that can prove that police solve crime or police reduce the number of homicides. That is not how you solve. Police are only there to react, okay? They're reactive, they're sitting in their cars, they're waiting on a call, okay? So we have to put more money into preventative measures. So when you talk about violence, let me break it down for you, Ken.
Break it down for me.
First, it starts that when you got a kid, the first place they come from is where, Ken? Comes from the home, right? Once they leave the home, say they got a broken home, parent, not a two-parent household, one parent possibly on drugs, or they don't have any
grandparents who are on drugs, right?
Yeah. So they come out of a broken household. Then where do they go? They go to school, right? But then they got a school with 40 kids in the classroom, the lack of clinical staff members, no after-school programs, lack of resources, and they go in there and act up, or display some behavior that's really from the home that they got from the home. Then they get put out or expelled, or they just say, forget school, I'm dropping out because no one in this school care about me. Then they go where? They go to the streets. Now you're in these communities without a mental health facility if they have a mental health problems, without a job because there lack of job opportunities, without anyone to grab them and put them back on the right path.
And they become one of that 50% of African-American male youths who have neither a job nor are they in school.
Nor they're in school. And so what happens to them? What happens to them? They go out and they say they commit a crime, or they hang out with their friends, they get arrested, and they go down to 26 California. They get a $10,000, forget $10,000, $5,000 bond, their bond is $500. But their family is poor, and they don't have the money to bond out with $500. So what do? They take the what? Plea deal, which the overwhelmingly, 98% of cases in the plea deals. So now they got a record now, back on the streets. They get probation or a few months of jail. Now they're back on the streets with a record. Now that really prevents them from getting a job or any opportunity. So this is a never-ending cycle. So to say all of that, Ken, is what I'm saying is that we're not only failing them in the home, right? We have a parenting problem in this generation, yes. But then when they come out the home, we're failing them in these communities. We're not giving them an environment that would put them on the right path. We're not giving them a great school. Schools in Inglewood should look just as good as schools in Ravenswood, right? We're not giving them mental health facilities. We're not creating, having economic development in their communities to create jobs, right? Or empower small businesses so they can hire from these very communities. So we're doing a bad job as leadership. Their household is also doing a bad job, but we have to do our part.
Okay, I want to stay here for a moment.
And police can't solve.
Here's what Eddie Johnson said: the police department isn't here to raise children. We're not. I can tell you how many people come up to us talking about their kids and what we can do. It's not about the police department what we can do. It's what you should do. What you should do," said Johnson.
Yeah.
So I mean, but
bad response.
Bad response. But here's the thing.
On Eddie's part.
We discuss all the time about the disinvestment issue and that whole litany that you just laid out. And I will just say straight up, I agree with you completely. You're 100% right. Okay. But the problem we have is that even if we went in there with $1 trillion and started rebuilding all of these things, you still have this generation of people who've been kind of lost. And I'm not sure that money will fix that problem.
Right. Money is not the only thing.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do for those kids that you've described, who you very well could have been one of, if you hadn't been grabbed when you were 12 years old, right? Yeah. And kind of the same thing with me too. I mean, I had a teacher that really kind of saved my butt when I was about 12, and we're lucky. We are two very lucky people, right? But what do you do about the kid who's not a kid anymore, who's 20? He's 20, he's your age, and he's standing out on a corner. You can't offer him a job at Walmart. That's not gonna fix it.
It's not. We have to have programs, and I believe that we definitely have to build up the next generation, but we also have to have programs that help those who have been affected already by this bad leadership from the household and from the mayor's office and so on and so forth. So what we got to do is we got to make sure that there are programs for those that are coming out of jail, right? So we don't have any programs for reentry citizens. So they go back into these communities, they feel like they can't get a job, or they feel like they can't vote, or all these different, everything's been stripped from them. So they have to, they're in survival mode, but they're going to eat, all right? So they're going to find a way to eat some way. So we got to have programs to help them do their resumes, to help them learn about, to get updated with technology, partner them with a corporation that gives them a good job with benefits. We got to have not just second chance, but third chance programs, okay? We can't have people out here just because they got a record. That does not mean that we just push them to the wayside. We got to be a city that helps everyone, okay? From young, middle, and old. We have to have programs that get everyone back on the right path. But we got to start with young people. So we presented a program, Kim, and I think you'll like this, that it's the GAS and the YAS program. And so GAS is the Guardian Accountability Services and Youth Accountability Services. So say a young person vandalized city property. They would be eligible for this program, or if it was triggered in a school, instead of putting letting the state's attorney charge them and giving them a record, we would grab them and say, all right, well, you got to do, we will partner with different organizations in that community. Say you got to do a certain number of months in this mentoring program, you got to do a certain number of hours in community service, or you got to clean up that stop sign that you vandalized. But here's the catch. And when YAS is triggered, GAS is triggered. We dispatch someone to the home to figure out what's going on in that home. And so
who's we?
The city of Chicago, we would create a department where we have social workers that we would dispatch to the home. And then what would happen is, say for instance, the parent is on drugs, and we would partner with, have partnership with DCFS to say, all right, well, we're gonna demand that you go to rehab. If you don't go to rehab, well, this problem isn't fixed, then we're gonna have to take this child out of the home. Or if it's a parent that just doesn't have any control over that kid, we can recommend a parenting program. Or if they're doing community service, we recommend that parent do a certain number of hours with that kid in community service to figure out how we can hold parents accountable as well as that young person and bring them together and make sure that young person is in a better household going forward.
You see what I'm saying, though, that it's one thing to be talking about saving the kids who are still savable, and then it's another thing altogether about, forgive me for saying this, but it's almost like containing the people who are, let me ask you this. Do you believe the police department's rap that there's 300-400 young people who basically are responsible for most of the violence?
What they say is more than that. They say that they have a database that.
Well, their database is 45,000 people or something.
Yeah, but they say that they have a certain amount that are deemed to be shot or will shoot.
Yeah.
If we do have that database, why don't we have a program to deal with that database? If you have the database of young people that are out there doing the crimes, that are out there doing it, why isn't the city of Chicago saying, we're going to develop a program that targets this base? Right. They did a program in Richmond. I'm working with Richmond, people from Richmond, California, and they did a program where they tried to say that they were paying them to not commit crime, but it's not like that. So basically, it's a program that we'll give them a stipend if they do counseling. It's like a 9-month program. They'll do counseling. They will meet with a mentor. They will be assigned a mentor. And if they go through that 9-month program, training, et cetera, at the end of that 9 months, we give them a guaranteed job, right? We need programs like that to deal with those people if we know who's doing it.
If I remember, I think it was Chip Mitchell over at WBEZ did a kind of a study about how much would it cost to do something like that, and it's about $1 billion.
I disagree. It's actually about $480 million over a 5-year span.
$500 million here, $500 million there.
It's about $80 million a year.
But the point is that if that could solve the problem, that would be a bargain. $1 billion would be a bargain to solve the problem.
Exactly.
We have it. We have the money, as they like to say. Chicago is not broke.
We ain't
Tom
broke. Tresser said it best.
Tom Tresser said it best. So, okay. So then you think that a program could do this, a well-run administrative program of some kind could begin
That target with specific targets,
really heavy targeting.
specific heavy targeting with specific goals, with great partners. Yes,
But it's not police targeting. It's not.
No.
It's not like
no.
a cop is going to be coming to your house and saying, if you don't stop this, we're
No.
going to put you in prison.
No.
It's something much more. Well,
That actually, see, we got to.
as you said, the police's job is reactive, and that's
reactive.
something we always have to keep in mind.
Yes.
We don't need the police to be proactive. Well, I mean, we need them to be. We need to be
definitely.
smart about
Right.
what they do, but their job is not to get in there and solve these problems before they happen. That's for other agencies to do.
Exactly. And we need to do that, because what we have now is we have a neighborhood with nothing, without programs, without the support that they need.
Right.
But then we got a heavy militarized, it's still a heavy militarized community,
Yeah.
in which something happens, the police are there to either arrest or kill you.
Yeah.
And then if they arrest you and put you in the system and you get back out, that does nothing for us.
And then when your reaction is we're going to have to send in more police, you're just taking two more steps down that
Two more
step
steps
into
down.
the abyss.
And how much money are we spending? We're spending half a billion on the extra police
On police,
officers,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
When we could be spending it
Yeah.
on actually addressing the root problem.
So the mayor, there's this weird fine line between what you're saying and something the mayor said the other day when he said, this may not be politically correct, but I know the power of faith and family. Our kids need that structure. What we shouldn't shy away from is a full discussion about the importance of family and faith helping to develop and nurture character, self-respect, a value system, and moral compass that allows kids to know bad from right and wrong. And we cannot be scared to have this conversation. Reaction.
You know, this is election season, okay? And let's just make that clear. If this was not election season, I don't think he would say anything. Okay, this is not the first time we didn't had these amount of shootings. We've always had this problem since he's been the mayor. He has not been direct in how he's going to actually solve this problem. All right, so he's just now just trying to give a good speech and a couple good taglines and put the pressure back on the community and say, raise your family. That's basically what he's saying. But where is he outlining a plan, a real plan on how he's going to deal with the problem? That's what I'm looking for. As the mayor, this is election season, and if you watch this, I want to see your real plan on how you're going to reduce violence in the city of Chicago. And then after saying that, you say, oh, here's another 500, 600 police officers that we're going to deploy on the streets. That is not how you solve violence. We need a real plan. And I don't see that from this administration. I just see a lot of good words and fake tears, to try to make people believe that he cares when he really doesn't.
Have you practiced your acceptance speech in front of the bathroom mirror? Because I'm wondering what that acceptance speech is going to have. What are you going to proclaim on your first day? Because you got to deal with this real quickly.
Real quickly. So, the first thing I would do, Ken, is I would get an independent audit on the city's books. All right, we do not know where a lot of money is. All right, Chicago's not broke, and he only gives us what he wants us to see. Okay, we have TIF funds that's not even reported. We have so many different funds that the mayor controls that is not in the budget, so for us to really see where it goes and how it got there. And we need an independent audit on all the city departments, because just after the sexual abuse scandal, where did he get that $500,000 from? We're broke. We're shutting down schools. We don't have books. But you could say, oh, we got a sexual abuse scandal. Here's $500,000 to give to my friend to investigate. So we need to know where that money is coming from so that we can get our fiscal house in order. Then we need to prioritize the city budget to go to where it needs to go. And then we, of course, got to target education. We, of course, got to target some of these programs that I'm talking about on how we're going to reduce violence and start to make neighborhoods turn to communities. And so that's going to require the proper leadership and pull everybody on the same level.
If you're just joining us and you're listening to the audio podcast, that's Mayor Jamal Green speaking with us this morning. It'll be a few more months before he takes office, apparently, but Jamal is running for mayor of Chicago, and this is part of our series of getting everybody who's running for mayor to come here and sit at this table and tell us what they're going to do. There are a bunch of other things that are related to this, but I think we would just jump ahead because we have out there. I have a hard time believing that there's much to it at this point, but we do have this Pat Quinn thing out there, and he got all the signatures he needed, and if he can get it on the ballot, now these are big ifs, but if he can get it on the ballot,
if he gets it on the ballot, Rama's done. Yes.
You think so? You think that a majority of people in Chicago who vote will vote to?
Hands down.
We should say that what this is it's a proposal to limit the mayor to two terms, starting with Rahm Emanuel.
Yes. So. And with it being branded that way, a lot of people will vote for it, and a lot of people would just, just go in and check yes anyway. So I do think a majority, if it's on the ballot, will get on there.
Do you have any reason to believe it's going to make it onto the ballot?
I have a little hope for it, but let me make it clear. I signed a petition. Pat's a good friend of mine, and I had a lot of people help him with the petitions. Because a lot of people, the goal is to make sure Rahm is not mayor again. But I would like to beat him myself. I would like to
You would like to run against him and win.
I would like to run against him. I would like to debate him. And I want to embarrass him for what he's done in his 2 terms. I don't think we should just let him off the hook. And, I think he would want this. He would want, and he would, he's probably trying to act like he's putting up a fight, but Rahm Emanuel will want to be termed so that he doesn't have to lose. He knows it's going to be a runoff.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he knows it's going to be a runoff.
It's like an easy way out.
It's an easy way out. It's no way he can get 51% of the vote. It's going to be a runoff, and he knows that anybody that gets it to that runoff has a good opportunity, whether they're bad or not, to say, well, I know I'm bad, but look at Rahm Emanuel. He had him 2 years. And
I'm not as bad as he is.
I'm not as bad as he is. And that can alone beat him and to get in the 3rd term. So he would probably want this so that he can go away and say, it's been 2 terms, guys. The voters have spoken, and I'm going to run the Democratic Party. No, we can't let him off the hook.
Going
like
back
that.
to the law.
I'm going back. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, my buddy Ben Joravsky has I think we're all a little bit torn about this because I actually do feel that there's a certain element of this that's just kind of like, it's just bad pool,
Right.
It's just sort of like, no, it's not fair to kick him out this way.
Right.
If you don't want the man as mayor, then vote him out with your own vote.
Right.
But besides that, I think Ben was railing the other day about the way Rahm should do this is let it get on the ballot and then run against it and say, I want to be your mayor again for a 3rd term. You've got to vote no on that issue on the ballot.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
And see what happens.
That's not going to work.
Well,
Listen,
okay.
Rahm is the most hated politician in the state.
Do you really
besides
think so?
Bruce Rauner.
Do you really think that's true?
Definitely. Okay.
What is his
rating,
base? Who's his political base?
No one knows. Okay. You won't even see a Rahm Emanuel sign in the city of Chicago. So a lot of his base are silent. Okay. So
Why
Trump
is that?
won.
Has he really been that bad a mayor?
Yes. And I'm gonna be clear on this. Okay. If you look at every department all the way down the line, from economic investment that we talk about, development, from education, from all of the abuse scandals and all the scandals in CPS and the 5 CEOs, from the Chicago Police Department. We could talk about that for days on how the reforms have been under his administration, from affordable housing, in which tens of thousands of people are displaced, and CHA sitting on $500 million when they've overpaid their pension fund and don't have any debt. We could go through every department and show you how bad of a mayor he has been. So yes, his voters are silent. Those voters that vote for him are the families and people that benefit the most, downtown and the rich, all right? He is the mayor of the wealthy in this city, and that's not enough to win. So
there aren't enough wealthy people.
There aren't enough wealthy people given office. It's just like Trump, okay? Trump had silent voters. But before Trump was elected, his voters were not as emboldened to get out there and say they were voting for Trump. They were more silent and was like, okay, we gonna go in them booth and put in Trump. His have to be that same way because of who he is.
Since we're talking about politics and tactics, we've seen these two big demonstrations on roadways.
Yeah.
They're very different from one another. Father Flagers and Reverend Livingston's
Very different.
thing. Do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, you obviously know something about protest and the effectiveness of protest.
Yes.
Were you at either of them? Did you support either of them?
I was at Flagers, and me and Father Flagers have been great friends for years, and he has supported me a lot, whether publicly or financially, in a lot of different projects that I've done in the city. So I did support his march, even though I disagree with it. But it was more about the fact that a lot of people are sitting stagnant, not doing anything, that we have to support someone doing something. No, I did not agree with shutting down the Dan Ryan on the South Side because it wasn't going to have the effect that I believe we should have had. Lakeshore Drive shutdown was possibly a little bit more in the direction that I was thinking about, to inconvenience those downtown, but we have to have a set agenda on what we want. Okay, so for instance, the reason why tasers, we went in front of the mayor's house several times and said police officers don't have tasers. This was last year when only 1 out of 5 officers had tasers, and they had to call the sergeant in the station and say, bring me a taser.
Send one out,
That's garbage, okay? I went in front of his house several times, and the interviews on the record and said 1 out of 5 officers got a taser. It's ridiculous. We need a taser on every officer. And Ron finally said, after we went to his house, that we'll give all officers tasers and train them, right? Then we said every officer need a body camera. Then he came out and said, all right, we're going to be unleashing the body cameras. So we need specifics on what we want when we do these different demonstrations.
This is such an important point because, pulling out the age card on you, I was around for the Martin Luther King demonstrations, and I have to say that I don't know if this is an age thing or what, but there's something romantic, about saying, I am going to put my body, my life, my reputation on the line because I so believe in this thing that I want. And it's not liberation that I want. It's I want a Voting Rights Act bill. And here's the bill, and I want it passed. And if you guys don't pass it, you will regret it. And I'm not going to ask you for a permit. Right? That's why it feels so weird to me.
Yes, and we've done that. After the Kwame McDonald video, how we shook up this city. I mean, let's please, in media, we don't give a lot of credit to a lot of the activists, the younger activist groups that have been around, especially after the Kwame McDonald video happened. They shook this city up. We would still have an Anita Alvarez in office without these groups. We would still have Gary McCarthy as a superintendent of police. Nothing would have been shooken up if people didn't take to the streets.
I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but another example of this is the Michigan Avenue March, the Black Friday March. Again, no permits. There was police cooperation, certainly, and that was a good thing. But
it's always police cooperation if they're outnumbered.
But again, it seemed to me like it had a specific goal, and it was focused.
They lost $500 million that day.
These general protests that just say we want the mayor to listen to us.
It's not enough. It's not enough. And then you go back in a room with the mayor or the governor or whatever, which both protest organizers are planning to do or have done already. I don't agree with that, because this is political season. Of course, if you get in front of the cameras and you putting pressure on them, they'll meet with you, because they want your vote and they want your support. So no, what is the real goal of these different protests?
I found it, we got to get off of this, but I found it really interesting that the goal was we want to have a meeting with the mayor.
That is garbage.
Well, but you're meeting with the city to get the permit to shut down the expressway so that you can protest. All right, I'll stop.
Yeah, it's garbage, Kim.
The thing that I really wanted to, a thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, just completely changing the topic, is the mayor has now put forward his plan that he and Michael Sachs have created to go out and borrow a bunch of money and then hopefully sort of triage the profit from that and use that to fund the pensions. I don't really understand it, I'll be the first to admit, because I'm not one of those high finance guys. But what I do know is that Paul Vallis, who does know something about this stuff, just immediately attacked it and said that it's irresponsible. Do you understand it? You know more about finance than I do.
Paul Vallis is right. I definitely think it's irresponsible. We're actually going to be releasing a plan and actually rebuttal to this actually very soon. I can't lay it out fully on the show, but we're going to be releasing this. I think, you know, Michael Sachs.
For pensions?
For pensions, you know, and we're going to be definitely talking about this. So my campaign is more targeting the dollars, okay? And so economics, I think that is what we didn't see in the last election. And so the budget is my Bible. I'm a numbers guy. I can show you where we're going to free up money, how we're going to raise money, et cetera.
You want to get into that budget, don't you? You want to go to that budget office and sit down and say.
And I want to dissect it and move things around. You know, that's where I want to be, okay? And I also
budget documents are a statement of morality.
Yes, and I definitely want to make sure we put different things in place. Like, for instance, instead of continuing to tax the people, and this is a part of the plan, but I'll put it out there, instead of continuing to tax the people and raise property taxes because of these horrible TIF funds, which I'm in favor of abolishing, we can get to that, we need a LaSalle Street tax, okay? I am the only candidate who is really pushing forward the most, because we are continuing to take money out of the citizens from every tax, from bag tax. At Cook County, we finally got the soda tax repealed. Now in the state, higher income tax. And so we need a LaSalle Street tax. We need to tax the rich. We need to tax those. They're making trillions of dollars down here. And that tax won't do anything to them. They can't move because of the market.
You don't buy that? You don't buy that they'll just move to Schaumburg or Rosemont?
There has been reports to show that it would be too much of a hassle for them to go anywhere. This is where they will stay no matter how high the taxes go, okay? So we need a LaSalle Street tax to bring in some revenue. So when you talk about pensions and the deficit, you know, and how we're gonna balance this budget, we gotta start talking about new progressive sources of revenue. And that's not going to happen with borrowing a bunch of money. Why do we continue to keep Michael Sachs should pay, you know, for the pensions for a few years. I mean, you know, he's the man who's really running this city, okay? He's telling Ron what to do and funding every commercial. Look at the commercials that he funded for Janice Jackson to make it look good. I mean, this is ridiculous. We're tired of rich people controlling the city of Chicago. We need to tax Michael Sachs and tax LaSalle Street and these wealthy politicians and stop letting them get out these loopholes like J.B. Pritzker did with his house next door, and make sure that we have some money from the people who actually can pay for it. Not stripping out the money of poor people from taxes, from red light cameras, from speed cameras, from everything in their communities, and they don't have the money. They don't have no choice but to pay for it. We have to have a different approach, okay?
I detected a criticism of the Democratic candidate for governor. Are you not a supporter of JB?
Well, no. Let me take that back. I put that on the record, okay? I've supported Daniel Biss, okay? That's who I endorsed, and I was a surrogate for Daniel Biss. Now, his whole tax thing, yes, I picked with him on.
So you are willing to compromise then? You're not a guy who can't compromise.
I'm not a guy who can't compromise, okay? I'm willing to compromise. But we have two.
So wait, are you supporting JB? Are you going to vote for JB?
Listen, I'm definitely not voting for Bruce Rauner. Okay, so that's clear. I think that we're in a state where we have no choice at this moment. And you know, I would have loved to have a candidate who actually understood the middle class and down, like Daniel Biss. And I am for campaign finance reform, and I think it's ridiculous that we've allowed now almost $207 million to be spent on this gubernatorial election. It's ridiculous. No one can compete with a billionaire spending $100 million. No one can compete with that, okay? And so I think it's disgusting, but we don't have any choice. And I think JB is obviously the clearer choice here, but I still disagree with a lot of how he went about it. And hopefully he gets in there and changes how things should be done going forward.
The only way to go after a bad guy with $1 billion is with a guy with many more billions.
With many more billions. I guess that's what that is.
Nice job, I must say, kind of dancing around that. But I won't embarrass you any further, but you're in a kind of a tough spot.
I'm in a tough spot.
But you know, you're a politician.
Yes.
And politicians get in tight spots.
Yes.
And sometimes they have to do things that they don't like.
And you got to do things you don't like.
And you're going to have to do that as mayor.
I agree.
Like for schools, for example, when they don't have enough money.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to decide.
Well, I ain't going to say if they don't have enough money. We got enough money if we're not prioritizing correctly. There's a decision making again.
All right. But you're gonna look at this and you're gonna say, my God, look at this story in the paper today that like half of the high schools, there's nobody going to them anymore.
Yeah. But let me tell you why. Now that we touched on education. If you live in a neighborhood where there is a school with lack of resources, and you just know that this is just academically a bad school, and you know that you could test your kid into a selective enrollment into another, or get them in a better school, or bus them to a better school, what are you gonna do? You're gonna try to ship your kid. You're gonna do B. So it's not fair to those schools that are in these neighborhoods. There's not leadership to make sure that we have schools on a level playing field. Every school should be a good school, a magnet school, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, but that costs money. It costs lots
of money. And let me tell you how we need to shift things. Okay, these TIF funds needs to be abolished. All right, and I'm for abolishing the TIF funds, flushing them out, giving them back to the city departments. It will go to CPS, Proctors, et cetera.
We'll have to reserve another hour to discuss that because, you know,
we need a new financial tool will be released.
It's a very complicated thing because the schools tax the amount of money they want, and they get it. And the TIFs do not rob money specifically from schools. I'm not saying this in defense of TIFs. I'm just saying the TIFs are enormously complicated.
It robs money from the communities, though.
It
does rob money from the communities.
Yes, it does. It was designed to be complicated so that nobody can understand it.
Which is why we need to abolish it. It's been corrupted. It's been a slush fund for several years. We need a new financial tool. Now, but on CPS, we have to make sure that we have to build up the schools in these neighborhoods that are not getting the resources the most.
The problem with this show is that we always end up crashing at the end.
I know.
And it's like, I want to talk to you about low-income housing set-asides. I want to ask, I ask you about aldermanic prerogative.
Yeah.
What can you do? A huge argument has been made, and an excellent one, that if you look back at open housing in Chicago and you look back on the racial segregation that was instituted and locked into stone in the city council generations ago, it has to do with the fact that an individual alderman can say, hell no.
Exactly.
You're not going to do this in my ward.
I agree.
How are you going to fix that?
Well,
Mr. Mayor.
Well, you know what? I think we're gonna have to definitely reserve another hour for that conversation. But I think what I want to pivot to is that I will be running a slate, okay, of new aldermen come after the ballot, okay.
Not this time. You're too busy running for mayor.
No, this time I'll be supporting a lot of aldermanic candidates after the ballot. And giving them a platform, also helping them out with a lot of other backers too. Okay?
How many you support?
You know, we're looking to support a lot. I can't put a number on it, but
a lot would be like 20.
Yeah. So, somewhere there. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see where it goes. But
you know,
we're definitely at a dozen.
Emanuel is not going to be the only dancing mayor, because I can see you do really nice pirouettes yourself there, sir.
I'm not in ballet, as Robert Emanuel was. I won't be dancing. I want to make sure we get to the issues, but we got to have people that also support these progressive values as city council.
Is gentrification always bad?
Definitely. You know, I think that we should never push people out of communities, which is why I'm in favor of former rent control, and put that on the record. I know we only got a few minutes left. We have to make sure.
Take that one off, rent control.
You can take that one off. We have to make sure that, even like the Obama library, right? Barack Obama says that we won't see gentrification until his kids have kids. That's wrong. We're seeing gentrification now, and people are buying up those communities. It's going to be too high for people to live there, which is why we need a community benefits agreement. We need to make sure that certain money is allocated and for
Will you stand
affordable
up
housing.
to the former president?
Yes, I would.
Will you tell him that you want these things?
Yes, I would, which is why I'm glad that it's postponed until my administration starts.
Would you pull it out of the park?
That's another thing that we would definitely have to talk about. I'm not dancing. I'm not dancing. But
no, it's a complicated issue.
It's a complicated issue.
Very complicated.
Yes, I would have been in favor of giving him some city land in Inglewood or somewhere else where we got it. I would have been in favor of that instead of taking the park.
I very much opposed putting it into the park until I started getting told that I had no business discussing this because I'm a white man and I ran away because I'm a chicken.
Because you're a chicken. Well, like I said, I'm fully in agreement with you. I think that they're a little bit far now and where they are. And so when it's times for us to take our administration, I think our main thing will be making sure that people can stay where they are in those communities and they sign a community benefits agreement.
Okay, no, this is one of these. It's too big a question to ask, but there are benefits to gentrification. Cities need to grow, and they need to grow the valuation of their property over time. So it's a two-sided thing.
It is, but I'm more in favor of creating. So my platform states that we want to create inclusive communities, end government corruption, and reimagine Chicago's future. Okay, so you talk about creating inclusive communities. I think there's always a way to make sure that we have people, all income levels in the same communities. We've had it in the past, all right? Yeah. And we got to make sure we have affordable housing. We got to make sure we have rent control. And then we also got to have other things, great schools and mental health facilities and economic development, which will help for middle class and higher. So I'm in favor of creating inclusive communities, not gentrifying the ones at the bottom and pushing them in there another community.
I read that you're incredibly enthusiastically in favor of Elon Musk's high-speed train to O'Hare, and you definitely set money aside for that. I know you will.
No, I would not set any money aside for Elon Musk and all the bad stories about Elon. I think we need to find a new tech guy.
We got to find a new hero.
We got to find a new hero.
All right.
So
I saved it for last, but the flags are flying all over the north side for the brand new Sterling Bay, and possibly $2 billion being given to Amazon. Aren't there good and bad things about both? Isn't this another one of those things that's good and bad?
It's good and bad, yes.
In 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, what's good and bad? Let me touch on, I'll touch on Amazon, all right? We're giving them a lot of incentives. We're not requiring much for them. Amazon also is not a morally good, this is a company that don't have good morals and principles on how they treat their workers and employees. We as a city of Chicago, yes, we would love to have an Amazon. It's about where we place it, but it's also about what we hold them accountable for as well. So just giving them billions of dollars of incentives and letting them come and run rampant on our citizens, I'm not for it. So we need to make sure we dissect that deal and require that they hire a certain amount from low-income communities, that they have maybe employee stock option in which they can own stock, et cetera. So we need to just go back to the agreement, and maybe they don't want to be in Chicago. That's fine.
Well,
we're still Chicago.
Yeah.
We're still a great city and world-class city, and other corporations with great morals would love to be here.
You also are pretty good at giving a head bite, too. So, it's like, hey, if you don't make it this time, I know that I will live long enough to see you many times doing other things in Chicago. So
yes, you're right.
It's been a pleasure to meet you. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, and it's just been really fun. And of course, we'll have to have you back.
Please,
so
anytime.
I say the same thing every time. When you're mayor, will you let us come and do the show from your office at least once? Just
of course,
just because
come on
we're
down.
just a little show,
Right in the office.
I mean, we're not Carol Marine,
Please come on down to the floor.
Okay. All right. Well, Jamal Green,
yes.
A pleasure meeting you, and
pleasure meeting you.
In journalistic terms, best wishes to you, whatever that means.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. You've been watching Chicago Newsroom. It is a presentation of CAN TV, and we thank David Resnick for producing our program today and lots of the other programs. It's very nicely done. Nice job, Dave. See you next week. Don't forget you can watch our show by going to this address and see any of our shows for going back years and years and years. Thanks much. See you next week. Bye.